At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Josh Graham.
Welcome in to the Josh Graham Show. We're with you until 7 p.m. Eastern Time, which means we'll be getting you ready for tonight's Elite Eight action in the NCAA tournament. Also, full disclosure, this host might be just a tad distracted because his Baltimore Orioles are getting started at Camden Yards as we speak against the Minnesota Twins. Little distracted. But let's hit on the big story of March Madness thus far. Since the Big Ten represents half the field that is advanced to the Elite Eight, it's led some to rashly jump to the conclusion the Big Ten is the best conference in college basketball right now. However, as tempting as that might be, you shouldn't quite crown them just yet, and here's why. The league is guaranteed to send at least one team to the Final Four. You have Iowa facing Illinois to tip things off on Saturday. When that happens, whoever wins that game tonight is going to be just the second Final Four team this decade that the Big Ten Conference has advanced to college basketball's biggest stage. Since the 2019 season, it's only been Zach Edey and Purdue 2 years ago that's made it to the Final Four, and that was a year after those Boilers became just the second team ever to lose to a 16 seed. Only having one Final Four team this decade so far. the previous 5 tournaments. 1 Final Four team. That is especially embarrassing when you consider that the Big Ten and the SEC have hogged all the NCAA tournament bids during that period of time. It's those 2 conferences by far, and at least the SEC won its first national title since 2012 last year. At least they got multiple teams to the Final Four a year ago. 5 tournaments, you're getting more bids than anyone else. 1 team that's advanced to the Final Four, that's it. And to compound matters, the Big Ten is still seeking its first national championship in men's college basketball in over a quarter century. The last team to cut down nets from the Big Ten was Michigan State in 2000. Mateen Cleaves starred on that team. Mateen Cleaves is now 48 years old. None of the players in this year's tournament was alive the last time the supposed best conference in college basketball won a championship. These are the facts. You can't call yourself the best conference in the country if you never win the title. That's why the SEC is having an existential crisis in football right now. They're having real difficulty doing what they normally do, puffing their chest out, saying they're the football conference and it just means more. When the Big Ten, to their credit, so this isn't anti-Big Ten propaganda here. No, the Big Ten is the best conference in college football. Why? Because they win the championships. The SEC hasn't even been to the national championship game the last 3 years, let alone won the title. And it's 3 different Big Ten schools that have won it in football. Ohio State, Michigan, and now Indiana. In basketball, if you're going to consider yourself the best league in the country, you got to win it all. You got to at some point. Because right now, the correct answer to the question, who's the best conference in college basketball, is the Big 12. It's the Big 12. Baylor and Kansas have won titles this decade, and they have a wagon that we're going to see later tonight in Arizona. And if it wasn't for Iowa State being hurt, maybe they're in the Elite Eight. That seems to be a common thread this year, unfortunately. BYU losing Richie Saunders alongside A.J. DeBonsa, and J.T. Toppin was a National Player of the Year frontrunner when he got hurt for Texas Tech. So they've had some bad luck with injuries. But that's the best conference in college basketball. And if you want to go historically, the ACC is the best conference in the country. It's not the Big Ten, even though you got half of the Elite Eight field. Congratulations. Hang a banner for that. Can you win a title? Now, here's the good news for the Big Ten. It does have a bona fide national frontrunner with the Michigan Wolverines. Heading into the Elite Eight, there are 3 teams that are a cut above the rest. Won't go as far to say for sure that these 3 teams are going to win because Purdue and UConn aren't that far behind them, but feel pretty comfortable saying Arizona, Duke, and those Michigan Wolverines, those are the teams that are of elite status in college basketball that are still in this field. Last night, Michigan played to a level that might be better than any team can play to. A fun game to play is in determining who the best teams are. Well, compare them and ask yourself, if they're playing well, whose good is the best? And Michigan's good might be better than anybody else's. Yes, they had their normal dominance in the post, out-rebounding Alabama 46-32. But when Yaxel Lindeborg is going 4 of 5 from 3 and defending players at the perimeter, and the bench is outscoring Bama's bench 33-8, even though one of the best 6-men in college basketball, L.J. Kaysen, tore his ACL a month ago, which was a supposed blow to this Michigan lineup. Elliot Cadeau, 7 assists to just 1 turnover. When that's happening and they're playing that way, it's hard to imagine this Michigan team losing. But once again, if the Big Ten is going to shatter this 26-year title drought, it's going to have to be Michigan to do so, and that's the only way they earn the distinction of being the best conference in college basketball. Michigan's going to shellac Tennessee in the Elite Eight, and they're going to join the Iowa-Illinois winner as the Big Ten's Final Four representatives, and that's great, having more Final Four representatives this year than you've had the previous 5 tournaments combined. But even with that being the case, getting ahead of the story now, you got to cut down nets to be considered the best conference in college basketball. This segment, sponsored by our friends at Progressive Commercial Insurance. They protect small businesses with affordable coverage options. Get a quote today at progressivecommercial.com. We have a ton of college basketball to get to today. Will Dalton is the producer of this program. Will's still hanging in there, waiting for his North Carolina Tar Heels to make a hire. Did you pour some out for Caleb Wilson last night, who announced that he's going to be leaving North Carolina to enter the draft?
I didn't pour anything out for him, but because we kind of saw it coming, right? Despite what he said on social media. I mean, Cooper Flagg did this a year ago, too.
Given that Hubert Davis was in the photos that he put out, maybe when they made that coaching change, that's what clinched things. We'll get to that coaching search in just a bit. We have our guy Josh Jacobs. Yes, that Josh Jacobs. Taking your calls at 310-840-4910 if you want in. Tom Crean, our Westwood One Sports teammate, is going to be joining us at the top of next hour to break down all things March Madness as we take you up until tip-off of the first game between Iowa and Illinois in the Elite Eight a few hours from now. But shifting things to the world of golf, we need to protect Tiger Woods at all costs. Because the man, he has issues behind the wheel of a car. Ah, yes. Pimentos and cheese. Azaleas blooming. Hello, friends. A tradition, unlike any other. Tiger Woods, the Masters, only on Westwood One. Yeah, didn't throw the CBS piece in there. We can. I think that people know what we're talking about. See, it just feels good just hearing that. You know, can get a little testy sometimes. Pimentos and cheese will cheer you up, and knowing that we're less than 2 weeks away from the Masters. Will Tiger Woods be there, though? That's the bigger question. Here's the news. Tiger Woods arrested, jailed for approximately 8 hours. Martin County, Florida, Jupiter, Florida. Suspicion of DUI. We need to protect Tiger Woods at all costs. And it seems most importantly, we need to protect him from himself, because this is the third scary instance with Tiger behind the wheel of a car just in the last decade. You had the DUI in 2017 where he was found asleep at the wheel and he had some painkillers in him, no alcohol, and some sleep medicine as well. There was the serious car crash a little over 5 years ago that was caused by excessive speed. That was out in California. And this seemed to be a combination of both. Reckless driving, where on a 2-lane road, Tiger is trying to get around like a tractor trailer or one of those power cleaning trucks. And then there was an incoming car in the other lane, and Tiger tried to swerve back. He clipped the big truck, and he flipped over. Fortunately, everybody turned out to be okay, but Tiger, no alcohol in his system, but was found to be impaired, according to those that obviously charged him with DUI. In the 5 years since the car crash, it's also become clear, we have enough sample size now to know he's not physically able to compete in major championships or at the PGA level anymore. So really, there needs to be somebody in his life, and we don't know if that exists, that tells him, hey, buddy, you're not driving anymore. You're too rich for that. Come on, hire a driver. If Adam Schefter doesn't drive so his tweeting fingers can stay free, Tiger Woods doesn't need to be driving either. Also, get yourself like a full-time Waymo or one of those self-driving Teslas. Figure it out. All right? That's number one. Number two, someone just needs to tell him, stop. No. Your golf life now should be being an ambassador for the game, not actually trying to compete and chase Jack anymore. That race is over. It's done. And somebody needs to tell him that, because let's not forget, this is the same man who tore his Achilles last year and had all those back surgeries last decade. He's 50 years old. It's a wrap. But let's be clear here. While it is time for Tiger to put the clubs away, the game of golf still needs Tiger around it. With respect to Trevor Immelman, who replaced Nick Faldo on the CBS coverage, golf coverage this decade, there's only one person that should be sitting next to Jim Nantz Sunday at the Masters, and that is Tiger. As U.S. Open champion Curtis Strange once put to me, Tiger doesn't move the needle. Tiger Woods is the needle. The same way it's good for football that Tom Brady is such a public ambassador and he's on these games and he's close to the sport and has a minority stake ownership in a team. That's good for football. The same should be true with Tiger, and it seems, whether it's his live involved in that debacle a few years ago, trying to, figure out what's best for the game, and what he has going on with TGL, this could be a role Tiger's willing to take on. And it is a real question, though, with the PR hit of what happened this week, if we're going to see him in Augusta. We really do hope so. Because the reality is, Tiger's one of the two most important living American athletes we have right now. It's him and Michael Jordan. Regardless of their age, Michael or Tiger, anything they do, anything they say, it's gigantic news. And what separates those two from, say, a guy like Tom Brady or a guy like LeBron James, they aren't polarizing. Tiger is supremely interesting and popular. He gives you a lot of reasons to be hated. Go back to his personal life with how his marriage blew up in the last 10 years, potentially endangering people with driving. Despite all that, when Tiger Woods is in contention to win a tournament, everybody watches, we're all there, and we're all rooting for Tiger in the Sunday Red. We all are. And the difference between Michael, say, and LeBron James, other than Michael being a better basketball player, is that everybody rooted for Michael. Like, everybody liked Michael. Everybody wanted to be like Mike. That's what's different about this. So, really, if you want to go further, just living athletes, over the last 100 years, Tiger cracks the list of American athletes on the Mount Rushmore. If you're doing an American athlete Mount Rushmore, here are the four names in terms of overall significance. It's Michael, it's Ali, it's Tiger, it's Babe. It's Babe Ruth. Those are the four. Those are the four athletes, the last 100 years, the American athlete Mount Rushmore. And those are names, you don't even have to say the last name, or you only have to say one name to know exactly who you're talking about. And the more we get removed from 2019, the more I appreciate what I consider to be the greatest sports moment of the 21st century, and that's Tiger winning that Masters. How improbable, how dramatic, how emotional it was, him to win that Masters in 2019, considering who was on the leaderboard and the scene with Charlie, his son, on 18. It's the best sports moment of this century as far as I could see it. But we'll put it to you. Where does Tiger fall in the pantheon of American athletes? Does this news affect that? 310-840-4910 if you want in. You could call us. You could text us, 310-840-4910 if you want in on the program. There is one game that is the main event this weekend, and it's not the game you're probably thinking it is right now. That and your phone calls next on The Josh Graham Show.
March Madness continues with Elite Eight matchups today and tomorrow. Listen to the Westwood One app to hear who moves on to the Final Four in Indianapolis from your home of the NCAA tournament. Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Josh Graham.
With Tiger Woods in the news, and some thinking the PR hit of another suspicion of DUI arrest could affect his public image, we're talking about the most important American athletes of all time. And for me, if we're going over the last 100 years, it's four names. It's Michael, it's Ali, it's Babe, and it's Tiger Woods. He's on that list. Michael and Tiger are the two most important living American athletes. But what say you before we circle back to March Madness and to the Elite Eight tonight? 310-840-4910. You could call us. You could text us. Let's go to Sean, who's in Cleveland. Sean, how do you feel about my list, my Mount Rushmore there?
I love it personally. Appreciate the time. For Tiger, I mean, the PR hit, yeah, I mean, it's not great, but, I mean, you hit it right on the head of the nail. Like, Tiger Woods is extremely polarizing, and I don't think it's going to take a huge impact, especially compared to what people think. I mean, in 2019 was absolutely unbelievable. Whenever he's out on the course, I mean, he has the most supporters, patrons out of anyone.
Well, then let me correct what you're saying for a second, because I think the words matter. I said he's not polarizing. I think LeBron and Tom are super polarizing, which means there's just as much hate as there is love. I think what separates Michael and Tiger is that when they're in it, we're all on the same team. We're all rooting for Tiger to win, and I don't think we see that a lot in sports. Do you?
No, absolutely not. I mean, myself being a Cleveland guy, when LeBron left, everyone hates his guts, but he's back. You love him. So it's the polarizing. I can agree with you, on that, and saying Brady and LeBron are extremely polarizing. But with Tiger, I mean, you want to see him win.
I love it. Sean, thank you so much for the phone call from Cleveland. Let's go to Mike in Buffalo, who believes that we're missing somebody. Hey, here's the thing. When it comes to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I've had voters give this expression to me, Mike. Don't tell me who should be in the Hall of Fame. Tell me who you'd take out of a class. My guy should be in. Okay, if you're going to submit somebody, you got to bump somebody off. Mike in Buffalo, who are you putting on the Mount Rushmore?
Well, first off, it's not important. It's influential. It's influential. And the most influential athlete in the last 100 years, everyone forgets. You take a couple seconds more to think about it, or you want me to tell you?
I got a feeling I know where you're headed. Are we talking baseball?
Yes, we are.
Jackie Robinson.
Absolutely. He broke the color barrier. So without Jackie Robinson, you probably don't have Tiger Woods. You probably don't have Muhammad Ali. You probably don't have Jim Brown. Okay? So if you're going to take one of those athletes off, like you asked about, I would say it would be Babe Ruth.
Well, here's the thing. I appreciate the call, Mike, and it's a great suggestion. It absolutely is. Don't get me wrong, because Jackie Robinson is my favorite American sports story, period. There are two athletes that I can read and have read and watched everything there's been done about them, and it's Jackie Robinson and it's Muhammad Ali. It's the reason why I hate the movie 42. It's one of my least favorite movies ever, because I felt that they over-dramatized a story that was unbeaten, never lost. Like it's a perfect story. We don't need you to put the little Disney sprinkle dust. Why is the movie ending with a walk-off home run and some guy looking thoughtfully into the sky after? I hated that movie because I loved the Jackie Robinson story that much. But no, we weren't talking about influence, because influence could also be negative influence. You can bring up guys who are incredibly negative in the influential space as well. No, I'm talking about most significant, the best of the best, and the four there that we brought up. Because nobody would say Jackie Robinson's the best baseball player that we have. but Babe Ruth was the best. He literally changed the game the way it was played because of his talents. But it is a good case, and he's certainly one that's really high up on the list. 310-840-4910 if you want in. The main event of the Elite Eight in college basketball is not the game that's going to draw the most ratings. That is in our nation's capital. It's UConn and Duke. It's Dan Hurley against the Death Star. It's the National Player of the Year in Cam Boozer going up against a program that's won 2 national championships this decade. That is going to dominate the ratings this weekend. From a basketball perspective, the main event is actually tonight, and it's Purdue, Arizona. Right here, you're looking at the best team in college basketball this year. That's what we believe Arizona to be. Hard to pick any holes in their lineup. They haven't had any injuries, unlike Duke. Duke beat Michigan head-to-head. Michigan has 3 losses this year. Arizona only has 2. A picture-perfect resume that perhaps we could talk more about in just a bit. It's the best team in college basketball going up against the preseason number 1 team in the AP poll. Entering the year, what made Purdue so intriguing is that they had a ton of homegrown seniors on their team. How often do you see multiple guys who haven't transferred at a school and they're in their 4th year? And what makes it more interesting is these guys have been through some bleep. These are guys who were there when Purdue lost to a 16 seed in Fairleigh Dickinson, and then 3 straight weekends, or 3 straight years, they make it to the second weekend of the tournament and to a Final Four 2 years ago. They're led by Braden Smith, who's one of the greatest college point guards of all time, certainly one of the most decorated. He broke the all-time career assist record that Bobby Hurley had before earlier this month. But don't forget that Arizona has advanced to this weekend 3 straight years as well. That means Tommy Lloyd and Jaden Bradley, they're familiar to this stage a good bit. While the constant this year in basketball has been these Wildcats and their dominance, that's been a central story from the jump. Opening night, they beat the reigning champs, Florida, which should have sent a message to all of us how good this team is. While that is the case, Purdue did catch fire in the Big Ten tournament, which included a win against Michigan that prior to that loss had only had 2 losses this year. Given that half the Elite Eight field is coming from that conference, perhaps we should not be dismissive of Purdue tonight against Arizona. Also, all the pressure is on Arizona to win this game. All of it. Nobody is thinking Purdue has a shot to win, and the Wildcats have been this juggernaut, but they haven't been to the Final Four in 25 years. 2001 was the last time they went. Anything short of making it to Indianapolis is an abject failure for the Arizona Wildcats. With this team, and given where they haven't been in such a long period of time, all that pressure falls on Tommy Lloyd's shoulders. And to add another wrinkle to this, if he loses this game tonight, he might be North Carolina's basketball coach in the next week. We'll talk more about the Tar Heel job in just a little bit. Arizona is our pick to advance in this game because, frankly, it's hard to find the angle of how they're beaten. The only Achilles heel you might be able to point to a little bit is they give up a good bit of offensive rebounds. And with Kaufman Wren in the post from Purdue and them having some size there, 3 or 4 guys who are bigger, maybe they can capitalize on that. But everywhere else, there just isn't a hole. You have an amazing coach, Tommy Lloyd, who's won more games in his first 5 years as a D1 coach than any coach in D1 history. You have a senior guard that was the Big 12's player of the year. Guards win in March. Oh, how about the Big 12's player of the year at guard for you? You have not just 1 star freshman. You have 2 in Koa Pete and Braden Burries. Ton of depth that you can lean on. You can play 8 deep. You know how you have international players all across college basketball because you make more playing in college basketball than playing over sees in the pros. Well, Arizona's got some of those guys too. And their resume, as mentioned, nearly perfect. It's not just beating Florida the opening night and only having 2 losses in the toughest conference in college basketball. You also went to Birmingham and beat Alabama. You went to Storrs, Connecticut and beat UConn, even though Terrace Reed didn't play in that game. And the other thing, we understand that folks parachute in on the college basketball season right now who haven't been watching throughout the year. And maybe the first thing you saw at Purdue was their run through the Big Ten tournament and beating Michigan, and that is coloring your opinion here. If you have been following all season long, this Purdue team was a write-off last month. We had our list that started with 18, and we just kept writing them off, and once you're off the list, you can't get back on it. Purdue was a write-off for us because they lost 3 out of 4 to close the regular season and 4 out of 6. And for the larger sample this season, even with a roster with a lot of familiar parts on it, this team did not look special. Arizona has the entire year. So Arizona not only wins the game, they win it by close to 10 points, somewhere between 7 to 10 points. Arizona will win the basketball game later tonight. Trying not to be distracted by the baseball that's in front of us here. Make sure if you haven't already, you're subscribed to our podcast. Search Westwood One Sports Night, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify if you miss any of the program, which includes Tom Crean joining us in less than a half hour. Our Westwood One teammate breaking down Elite Eight action. A reminder that I'll be hosting shows from the Final Four in Indianapolis next week, Thursday night and Friday night, plus Sunday afternoon. And after the championship game on Monday, Westwood One Sports is your exclusive audio home of the Elite Eight and of the Final Four and, of course, the national championship game. Our team's also out in D.C. for the regional this weekend. Go to our YouTube channel. Westwood One Sports Night is where you can watch the show right now, streaming live. And you can also check out exclusive content from the locker rooms last night and for tomorrow's regional final. Please subscribe, Westwood One Sports Night, as so many of you already have. There is a story happening outside of the NCAA tournament that is dominating conversation within March Madness circles. And we'll bring you the latest on that story next on The Josh Graham Show.
Heating up, and so is the sports calendar. We are your home of the Final Four, the Masters, and the NFL Draft, taking you inside the sports you care about. Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will be in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Josh Graham.
We briefly hit on Purdue, Arizona, but what about the first game tonight? Is Iowa to be considered a Cinderella? 310-840-4910. This is a question we ask you. Iowa, a Cinderella? 310-840-4910. We'll ask Tom Crean, our Westwood One Sports teammate, when he joins us in about 20 minutes. But there's a topic that's been dominating college basketball circles, even though it isn't related to the NCAA tournament, and that is the North Carolina coaching search. To bring you up to speed, North Carolina decided to fire Hubert Davis after 5 seasons earlier this week. They are currently engaged in a search. As that's happening, assistants from the prior staff are leaving to go elsewhere. Caleb Wilson, the top 5 caliber draft pick from this past season who got hurt, leading to Hubert Davis's firing, declared for the NBA draft. And one name has emerged as the primary focus of the Tar Heel search. There is only one hire that would be universally approved of in Chapel Hill, and that is Arizona head coach Tommy Lloyd. A big piece that you need to understand about this search is the approval of Roy Williams and the Carolina family. They are deviating from hiring somebody directly connected to Dean Smith for the first time. So for the first time since the 50s, North Carolina will have a coach that's not named Dean Smith or hasn't played or worked for Dean Smith. And given that's the case, it's important that you have Roy Williams and the Carolina family on board. That's why you're not going to see Nate Oates pursued. It's a huge buyout, and he's got a lot of other things that he deals with that you just don't want any part of. The Aiden Holloway situation, the Brandon Miller situation, the Charles Bediako stuff earlier this year that was frowned upon. It's not going to be him. Todd Golden, his Title IX case, they're probably not going to want to deal with that, and a large buyout as well from Florida as well. Roy Williams and the Carolina family would absolutely positively be on board for Tommy Lloyd. When Roy retired 5 years ago on April Fool's Day of all days, remember getting that press release and had to text the PR person from North Carolina saying, "Is this an April Fool's joke?" And a follow-up release went out 10 minutes later that said in bold letters, and it was highlighted, "This is not an April Fool's joke." Roy Williams retiring. That was an actual thing that happened. When Roy retired, he made the decision makers know he wanted Hubert Davis to replace him. And he got his wish. But he did reportedly say that if Carolina did go outside the family with that hire, there was one coach he'd be okay with them hiring. Gonzaga's Mark Few. The same Mark Few that Tommy Lloyd was the right-hand man for 20 years. 20 years in Spokane prior to becoming Arizona's coach. In fact, when Roy retired, Lloyd hired Roy's top assistant, Steve Robinson, to help him get that Arizona program off the ground. Caleb Love, who transferred from North Carolina after ending Coach K's career in New Orleans, to Michigan initially, but there was some academic stuff that blew that up late in the process. So Caleb needed a landing spot. Who was there to take him in and make him a more efficient player than he was in Chapel Hill? It was Arizona. He was the final Pac-12 player of the year, Caleb Love was. Tommy Lloyd would also be the perfect foil to John Shire at Duke. Like it or not, at North Carolina, you're going to be compared to Duke. That is your sparring partner. That is who you measure yourself against. And there's no doubt that Duke has it humming right now. John Shire has the record for the most wins in his first 4 years as a D1 head coach. Tommy Lloyd has that same record for the first 5 years as a D1 coach. John Shire has lost 3 home games in 4 seasons at Duke. Wow! 3 home games in 4 years? That's nuts. One of those games was, to you guessed it, Tommy Lloyd and Arizona. The only team you could argue that is better than Duke this season, on paper, Arizona. They both have 2 losses, but Arizona has done all this in the Big 12 and scheduled just as rigorously as Duke did, and they're not dealing with as many injuries. He also checks all the boxes that North Carolina incoming AD Steve Newmark laid out. Here's a sign of the times, it being 2026. Here was Newmark on, get ready, North Carolina Athletics' in-house podcast. Here's how that sounded.
For us to do right by the Carolina family, we have to make sure we get the best candidate possible, the one who can lead us for years to come and have us competing for national championships on an annual basis. We want to make sure that we have a leader who understands that part of the job is trying to manage the financial component of running a basketball program, and somebody who is, able and engaged and energizes our fan base. And so I think we're confident that there's a lot of qualified folks out there. We just need to make sure we find the one that is the right for Carolina.
That seemed like a little bit of a jab at Hubert Davis at the end. We need a coach that's going to energize our fan base and recognize the current landscape of things. Got it. It's not going to be easy to pry him away from Arizona, though. It's not impossible. Tommy Lloyd is working for an AD and a university president that didn't hire him, and reportedly he's had some issues with administration in recent seasons. There are challenges. He has a sizable buyout. He has been a West Coast guy his entire career. Carolina would have to blow him out of the water with resources, but you are North freaking Carolina. You have the capability to do that. If you could do it with a football coach and bringing in Bill Belichick, you sure as hell should be able to do so with basketball as well. So this is what's going to happen. Get ready. Either North Carolina lands its big fish with Tommy Lloyd, and it happens. See, if you're a North Carolina fan, you should be a huge Purdue fan and wanting Arizona to lose so that way he becomes available. If he wins a national title, he isn't going to leave. So Tommy Lloyd loses somewhere between now and the national championship game, and North Carolina either lands him or he uses the Tar Heels to get more from his administration, get more NIL, get more support. And in that case, you would have to deviate, and that deviation would either be Billy Donovan, the Bulls head coach. A lot of people were asking. People have mentioned the buyouts for college coaches. Why haven't we heard about the buyout for NBA guys? Well, teams don't have to reveal that because it's not a public institution. Did get a text from a source yesterday who's incredibly reliable on this, who said that the buyout for Billy Donovan is $6.5 million, assuming the Bulls and Jerry Reinsdorf don't just release him from his contract altogether. So that's $6.5 million, and then there's TJ Otzelberger, whose buyout's around $4 million. There are some still floating Dusty May out there. That doesn't make much sense considering Michigan does have all these resources. However, did hear a story that Michigan flew commercial a few times this year. That sounds like something you could get shored up and using North Carolina as leverage to get done if you're Dusty May. Dusty May turned down his alma mater at Indiana to stay at Michigan a year ago, and that's before he's really had him up the way that he has now. So I think it does come down to one of these three coaches. I think it's going to be Tommy Lloyd, or then you deviate to either Billy Donovan or TJ Otzelberger. Don't think it's going to be anyone else other than those three. And we'll see. I mean, Otzelberger's available, and so is Billy Donovan in theory. You can make that announcement, and he's doing two jobs at once, kind of like the college coach that, like John Summerall, who was coaching Tulane while also being the Florida coach. You can figure things out in this landscape and in this environment. Will Dalton, you are the emotionally attached North Carolina fan on this show. You root for the Tar Heels. We both reside in North Carolina, but you are a fan of this basketball team. Where are you at on the guys you would prefer North Carolina to hire? Do you agree that these are the three?
Yeah, I do. My list was Billy Donovan at 1, Tommy Lloyd
over
at 2.
Lloyd.
Initially. But the more I read about Tommy Lloyd and the Mark Few stuff and how this could be the best way to still finagle the Carolina family stuff, which I think you should do if you can. Don't want to upset Roy or anything or any former players. I like Tommy Lloyd the best, actually. Dusty May was third on my list, but I don't see that one happening. I had TJ Otzelberger as a dark horse, but he took his name out of it.
He did?
Earlier, a couple of days ago, I thought he had said that.
No, he didn't. He did not. He did not.
I had read okay.
Oh, no, he said the thing to reporters that, we have any speculation with me and other jobs is not true. Okay, that's not, you did not do, there's only been one coach really over the last 5 to 10 years who we can remember just flat out putting his name on it the way that we want coaches to when we ask this question. And it was Dan Lanning who said, I am not coaching anywhere else other than Oregon. I'm not going to Alabama. And there you go. I mean, you're in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Did we not learn from Will Wade at all to say that coaches lie sometimes? I mean, come on. TJ wouldn't even be lying. And the other thing, the reason why we're not going to play the TJ sound and we're not going to play the Tommy Lloyd sound is there really is no benefit to it. Like, it's not even just that they might take the job by being coy. It's even if they know they're not going to take the job or they're not a candidate, it doesn't benefit them to say it out loud for the reasons we just outlined.
Yeah.
If you're Dusty May and don't want to fly commercial ever again, well, this is a nice little tool that you can use to try to leverage that. And whatever that equivalent is, Arizona, for Tommy Lloyd to get potentially what he wants. You can write in on our Westwood One Sports Night chat, where you can watch the show in addition to listening to it, as Phil is doing. Oh, heck yeah, I'm rooting for Purdue tonight. Although it's not a guarantee we'll get Lloyd. I like Dusty May, too. I believe Otzelberger ruled himself out yesterday. I haven't seen that. Okay? I see Jeff Goodman. I see Jeff Goodman. Hold on one sec.
I
saw Jeff Goodman say that TJ Otzelberger's out of the mix. I did see that. But it wasn't TJ Otzelberger himself saying that. That was a report from Jeff Goodman, which is two different things. It's different than Jeff Goodman is a very reliable person, but him saying, I'm hearing he's not in the mix, is different than, because this is the same dude who did what I did right after North Carolina lost on Thursday night, saying, I'd be shocked if North Carolina fired Hubert Davis. So it's a totally different thing, and this isn't meant to be a shot at Jeff at all. He is as reliable as it comes, but that's different than TJ Otzelberger saying, as you said, that he's not out of it, or that he is out of it. So we'll continue to put our, ear to the ground, our nose to the grindstone, so to speak, and trying to figure things out. Hey, the Orioles took a 1-0 lead. That's fun. You know what else is fun? Getting somebody on the show that's going to make this show a lot smarter than how it's currently constituted. Tom Crean, shout out to Drunkle Sam. Hey, Josh Graham and the other guy. That other guy's the WD. Put some respect on his name. Tom Crean is going to be our guest. He's our Westwood One sports teammate, calling action, March Madness action for us during the NCAA tournament. He'll tell us if Iowa is, in fact, a Cinderella and how he'd attack Arizona if he were on the other sideline. Tom joins the show next on The Josh Graham Show.
This is Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Josh Graham.
We are now being joined by our teammate, Tom Crean, calling March Madness action for us this weekend. Westwood One Sports, your exclusive home, audio home for the NCAA tournament and the Elite Eight. And the time has arrived for us to break down games in the rounds of 8 of this tournament. And let's start with this question with the all Big Ten showdown in Houston. Considering the league they come from, Tom, do you consider Iowa a Cinderella?
No, because they have a lot of money. And I think anybody that's over $4 million right now in NIL at any level, I don't think there are any Cinderellas. High Point had a ton of money in their league, whether it was 4, whether it was 5, maybe I've heard even higher. So there's no Cinderellas when you have that. And in the case of Iowa, when you watch them play, they are, first off, it just shows how good the Big Ten is. But bottom line is they're a really good team. I had a chance to call their games this past weekend in Tampa. And so I got a chance to see them practice up close and watch them play up close. They're the real deal. I mean, they are tough. They are extremely quick. They cover up for mistakes, which they don't make a ton of them, but they cover up for mistakes so fast, not only on the offensive end because they can shoot the ball, but on the defensive end because they recover so quick, they get around you. Their post defense is really, really good because you might be open for a second, and if you don't throw it in, they're covering it up. They're getting into your body. They're getting around you. They're using their hands and their feet. They're on the glass tough. They believe they can win, and they're very, very committed to playing the way that Ben McCollum wants them to play, and they do a great job of it.
And the fact that Ben McCollum's doing this in his first year after Fran McCaffrey was there forever. I'm just interested watching it up close in Tampa or watching what we saw the other night. Just what impresses you from a coaching lens about how this team executes in late game where Florida presses and Fulgaris is open when they break that press for that 3. And then, of course, they don't have 5 players on the floor and Fulgaris is catching that long outlet pass for the and one that put the game away. What most stands out to you about Iowa's late game execution and how much of that is coaching?
Well, you could watch basketball another 50 years and maybe never see it with 4 players on the court at one time, and they were the beneficiary of some bad luck for Nebraska on that. But I think even with the press offense, like they had the corner open throughout the game. They just didn't throw it to them. And Florida probably should not have let Bennett Sturtz catch it going downhill on the court where they had to overhelp. But I think it's just a matter of they get open. They have very good spacing. They know what they want. They have very good drivers. Their bigs are outstanding drivers, and they can shoot the ball. Fulgaris was 13 of 13 from the foul line last weekend in Tampa. I mean, most of them were switches. So, like, the three was not a surprise the way that he shoots it. He was a really good three-point shooter at Robert Morris, and he's done a great job there. This is what it is with them. It's not about the lack of possessions. I think they average 61, which is definitely lower than average. It's how they maximize each possession. Their efficiency is so good. And so when you watch them, you can't get caught up in how many shots they're getting or how many possessions they're having or how many points they're averaging. Are they getting the most out of every possession? And more often than not right now, they are. And when they've been successful, they are. And they really know how to utilize Bennett Sturtz. I think the most interesting thing to me is not only does he put a team of shooters on the floor, they're all very good passers, very, very good passers. And Bennett Sturtz is a guy, the other thing that's so different is he moves him around constantly. And I think that's great coaching. I tried to do that with our guards. You know, if it was a point guard, I tried to move them around because you never want to let the defense lock into how they're going to guard the best player or the point guard. And I think Ben does as good as anybody maybe in the country, but definitely in this tournament, of moving his best player around and continuing to make him hard to guard and hard to find.
Tom Crean's with us here, calling March Madness action for Westwood One Sports, our teammate, kind enough to be here. Following Iowa, Illinois, Arizona, Purdue, a matchup between arguably the best team in college basketball all season against the team that was ranked preseason number 1 in the preseason AP poll. How close or lopsided do you consider this matchup to be, Tom?
Well, I think Purdue is playing really well with their starters, but the other thing that's happened for them is their bench really guards. I mean, they've got guys that aren't scoring a lot of points that come in the game and really guard, and I think that's really important in this game because they're going to be fearless. They will absolutely be fearless. I think what you have, they're going to match them with intensity and toughness. I think what Arizona has is they have the best overall depth. I think they've had it all season. I think they have it in the tournament. I think when you can go to the bench like Florida did last year and you can basically say that you have 8 guys that would start for probably 75, 80%, maybe even higher of the power teams in the country, then you've got something going really good. And I think that's what Arizona has. Maybe power 5, power 6, I would say they'd start. Maybe not everybody, but they've got a really deep team. They can beat you a lot of different ways. They can really rebound. They get fouled. That's a huge deal. I mean, that's an absolutely huge deal. So with Purdue, they're excellent in the pick and roll. Braden Smith is fantastic, but Trey Kaufman-Renn is fantastic in it as well. He can score in the post. He can score in the roll game, the ball screen game. Fletcher Lawyer's making shots. I think that's really important for them. I think Arizona's the best. I picked them at the beginning to win it, but I think this Purdue game is going to be fantastic because I think they are playing with tremendous confidence and tremendous physicality.
Let's try to imagine that you're the head coach of the Purdue Boilermakers. You're in Matt Painter's position, and you're having to try to scout Arizona. Who's the player that you think is keeping you up at night trying to prepare for this? Who's the guy you're most losing sleep over in the scouting report?
For me, Ivan Karchenkov. I think he is an incredibly hard matchup. I've thought that all along. He had a really good game last night. I mean, think about it. They scored 60 points in the paint and had all those points at the free throw line as well. And Ivan Karchenkov he can attack any matchup. And I think he's the one guy, like they got outstanding guards, very good bigs, really good freshmen, player of the year in Jaden Bradley. But Ivan Karchenkov is the hardest to guard because of his strength, because of his driving ability. He can shoot it. He can overpower you. And what happens is this. you think because Bradley's in the game and Burries is in the game and Krivaks is in the game and all those different guys. So what level of defender are you putting on Ivan? And the thing that Arizona does such a good job of is they find matchups and switches and mismatches for him to take advantage. And he doesn't have to be the leading scorer to be one of the leading impact guys. So that's the guy that would really, I'd be really game planning for how we're going to guard him.
Tom Crean joining us here, Westwood One Sports. Now let's shift gears to the coaching carousel. A lot going on in the state of North Carolina where I call home. I'm in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, right down the road in Chapel Hill. North Carolina is open, and the Tar Heels are going big game hunting. Since they are likely to hire outside the family for the first time in any of our lifetimes, what does your criteria look like for a fit, and who might fit that mold?
Well, I'm not going to go to who would fit because so many people that could fit them are still coaching, and I don't do that. But I would say what they need, whether it be somebody in college right now that's still coaching or just got beat, whether it's an NBA coach, whatever it is, they need somebody that is going to be stronger than the infrastructure, because that infrastructure is not great there right now, right? There's too much going on. There's too many things that are hanging in the balance. And that's what happens when you get your expectations are so high and then you're not aligned as you go through them. And that's just the way it is. I mean, I lived a lot of that at Indiana. So that there's a lot of that. I would say you have to have a very strong leader that knows how to build alignment, right? Because you may not walk into complete alignment, but you're going to be responsible for pulling them together. And when push comes to shove, you got to be strong enough and have a contract strong enough and have experience strong enough that you can overcome it if there's some resistance. I think that's big. I think somebody that brings an edge basketball wise, whether it's the way they develop players, whether it's an offensive edge, whether it's a creativity, you got to have something that you can hang your hat on and have an identity with. But at the same time, you got to be really game plan driven. And you have to have somebody that walks in and sees Duke and sees the ACC and sees the other teams in the country and says, we can get back to this in a quick period of time because of how we're going to recruit, because of how we're going to develop, and how we're going to go after each game for what it is. Because you're certainly going to have the money. I think anybody acting like they were going to lose money, and that's why they moved on to Hubert, I don't believe that one iota, all right, and not one bit. I mean, it's North Carolina. If everybody's got money, North Carolina's going to have as much money as they need. It just is the way that it is. So I think those are the biggest things. And somebody that when there's a couple of hard days and you lose 3 games in a row, or you lose a game you shouldn't have lost for the second time that year, that leader is strong enough to keep his group intact and not let people infiltrate it. And the people that are a part of the core are going to look at it and say, this is our guy. He's going to get it done. We've got to stay locked into this and not start chirping at the water coolers or get on the phone with this donor, get on the phone with that donor and do all that nonsense. Because that's not just a Carolina thing. That's an everywhere thing. And if the leadership is not strong enough to endure that, it gets real hard. And now you start having little fractions in the chinks in the armor, I should say.
Yeah. Every coach I've talked to publicly or privately hates what happened to Hubert and didn't think it was necessary. How has the coaching community, which you're right in the middle of and have so many connections in, how has it hit them? What conversations have you had?
In all honesty, I'm not really talking to people. I'm here doing this tournament. I'm locked into what I'm doing. We've had interviews. I'm really not on the phone very much talking to people. I mean, I just read what I read. Sure. And I don't really get into that. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what any coaches think. This is the business. This is the business of it. I've lived it to a degree. I mean, this is the absolute business of this. And there's 2 sides to every business decision. And a lot of times when you have what happens to Hubert, no one should ever be questioning when a coach leaves before his contract is up. Because at the end of the day, it just becomes what narrative you want to pontificate on, or what narrative you want to speak loudly into a megaphone on. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it's the whole thing of loyalty and we're all together and all that stuff. That's not really the way it's been in a long time, and it's really not that way now. The money and the voices that are involved in this now because of the NIL, all the different things that go on, the competition for that money, the competition to be at the top of the ladder. It's just the way that it is, and you just have to deal with it. That's why getting the strongest leader into a place like North Carolina is really, really important, or you're going to be going through this again in a couple of years.
Tom Crean, you referenced your time at Indiana. We'll be doing our show from the Final Four in Indy next week at Westwood One Sports. Obviously, we're carrying the darn thing. If I try to drop your name to get a table at St. Elmo's, how does that go?
No, I don't know anybody there. No, well, you know what? The owner of St. Elmo's, I think they live in Sarasota. Saw him at a clothing store one time downtown in St. Armand Circle, but I have no juice there. I used to have juice at Moe's, place for steaks, but I don't think I have juice there anymore. Try maybe, I don't know, Steak and Shake or something like that. Maybe try one of those places. I don't think I have juice. I don't have juice anywhere in there. I don't think I could walk. I don't think I could call into any place and say, hey, it's Tom Crean. Could I get a table and move up the list on any place? There was a time when I could have done that, but not anymore.
Tom Crean, we enjoy hearing you on the call. Thank you so much for making the time for us here on Westwood One Sports.
Absolutely.
It's so good. Appreciate you, Tom, joining us. Gonna write that down. What was the name of that place again? Steak and Shake? Okay, got it. See if that's gonna help me out at all. Great stuff from him. It is distracting trying to talk to Tom Crean while watch the Orioles allow a run. It's a 1-1 tie. Will Dalton, baseball season's here. It's here. The optimism meter, it's very high through just one game with the Orioles. See, we won the first game, and then you go through that second day. You know how they do with opening day, where they try to protect opening day in case of potential rainouts, where everybody is off on Friday that played on Thursday. The Orioles decided, you know what? We want to keep the good vibes going. So we're going to extend a starting pitcher to a 5-year contract yesterday. And the Orioles aren't a team that ever gives multi-year contracts to anybody, extensions. So that happens, and it even happens before that pitcher makes his Orioles debut. He pitches tomorrow, and we're giving him a 5-year deal. Shout out to Shane Baz. And we're 1-0. We're in a 1-1 tie with the Minnesota Twins at the moment. Kyle Bradish is still looking good. And here's the other thing, Will. Vibes are high. The vibes are good, and morale is high because TV networks have given us our beloved Strike Zone boxes. That's a thing.
You got your box.
See, it was reported that they were going to get rid of those, and fans got so mad, Will, that apparently they found a way where in the stadium, including the broadcast team, they do not have the boxes. In the stadium, like the play-by-play guys, they do not have them, but we have them at home. So that was the compromise, that in the stadium you can't see the boxes, but at home you can, because we love our K-Zone boxes. And this is good. So the Orioles are good, and we're extending players. We haven't lost, and we got K-Zone boxes. What could be better?
Yeah, and hey, in the case of the Yankees, Aaron Judge, his first hit yesterday of the season was a homer. He didn't strike out 3 times, or 4, sorry.
4.
Excuse me. 4, yeah. Yeah.
We're asking this question. Should Iowa be considered a Cinderella? 310-840-4910. You can call us or text us. Should Iowa be considered a Cinderella? Tom Crean doesn't think that that's the case. He was pretty dismissive about it, too. I'll tell you why he's wrong, and we'll get to your calls next on The Josh Graham Show.
March Madness continues with Elite 8 matchups today and tomorrow. Listen to the Westwood One app to hear who moves on to the Final Four in Indianapolis from your home of the NCAA tournament. Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will be in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Josh Graham.
Should Iowa be considered a Cinderella? Tom Crean, who just joined us, says no. What do you say? 310-840-4910. Santeria. Sublime. Excellent stuff by Josh Jacobs, who's taking your calls at 310-840-4910. Will Dalton knows that I like singing karaoke. Don't get that confused with thinking that I'm a good singer. I don't believe that. I don't think I am. You've heard me sing karaoke before. WD, what is my number one rule when it comes to karaoke?
You don't sing the same song twice.
Correct.
You don't do that.
So, and the reason that is, there are so many great songs in the world, it shouldn't be hard to pick a song that you haven't sung before. And if you want the night to be distinct, it's fun when you can attach specific memories to a specific song. And when I hear Santeria by Sublime play, I think about the time that my wife and I went to New Orleans and stayed on the French Quarter. And the night that the Saints were playing on a Thursday night at home, so like a few blocks away from where this happened, the Saints are playing that night. So it is popping in the French Quarter. I hear some karaoke being sung, and I decide I'm going to get on stage and tell Sanchito I got something for his punk ass. And that's what I did. That's what I did. Sublime,
good stuff.
Santeria, rocking it. So that would be my word of advice for karaoke singers out there. Don't sing the same song twice. There's your key. In terms of answering the question of Iowa, they are absolutely a Cinderella in this tournament. See, you have the conversation, and Jacob, see if you can find this Rick Pitino sound, where Rick Pitino was talking about things that are dead in college basketball. We'll get to that in just a bit. But there's been this conversation, is Cinderella dead? No, but maybe Cinderella needs redefining, because Iowa absolutely meets the bill. It's not just that they are a 9 seed. See, North Carolina, they were an 8 seed a few years ago, made the title game. No one's considering North Carolina a Cinderella, and they shouldn't have been considered that way. But Iowa qualifies. They haven't been to the Elite Eight since 1987. That was 39 years ago. They haven't made the Final Four since 1980. They are the lowest seeded Big Ten team, this team here, to make it to an Elite Eight. And Ben McCollum, it's important to remember that this is year one for him in Iowa City. He took over for Fran McCaffrey, who was there forever. So this is a massive sea shift here for Ben McCollum to take over after somebody had been there for such a long period of time. And it's not like he inherited a monster or even a consistent winner. It had been 3 years since Iowa made the tournament altogether. So the fact that they're here in the Elite Eight with that coach and the way they're doing it, it's Cinderella. He's done a fabulous coaching job at this tournament. Late game execution, facing that press from Florida, which was a mistake on Todd Golden's part, and you find Fulgaris open in the corner from 3. Hey, word to Illinois. Keep an eye on big number 7 from Iowa, because Florida lost him when it mattered most, and Nebraska, with just 4 guys on the court, lost him as well as he struck away off an inbounds pass, receiving an outlet and hit an AM1 layup to put that game away. This team is really, really situationally sound. They don't beat themselves, and that's a sign of really good coaching. But as we mentioned, even if Cinderella is dead, as we've always known Cinderella to be, Rick Pitino argues that Blue Bloods might be dead too. And overall, it's a win for college basketball. Here was the case that Pitino made in D.C. this week.
The Blue Bloods no longer control basketball any longer. There's no difference between Kentucky, North Carolina, than Illinois or St. John's. There's no difference anymore. It's all going to be the same. You're going to see 40 to 50 teams, all the same. So there's no such a thing as a blue blood anymore. There's no difference between North Carolina State and somebody else. Everybody's the same.
Yeah, well, if Itzy State was the same as LSU, would Will Wade be leaving the job to go to Baton Rouge? Blue Bloods still matter. They're still relevant. They still exist because those schools have committed to being good at basketball. And they have large followings, and they have alumni bases and donor bases that are accustomed to supporting basketball. You don't always have that at the schools that Rick Pitino is describing there. But you do at Kentucky, and that's why they spent more than $20 million on this roster reportedly this year. You do at North Carolina. You do at Duke. You do at Kansas, at those places. So not in complete agreement with Pitino, but he also made a point to say college basketball. You know how old heads always say, well, the game's not as good as it was in the 90s. It's not as good as it was. You know, there's this trend on TikTok, I think, WD, where it's like, tell me what life was like in the 90s. And it's always like this nostalgia thing that's so amazing. Rick Pitino coached in the 90s. Rick Pitino coached in the 80s. Rick Pitino has been coaching a very long time. Yet Rick Pitino says the college basketball today is better. The quality of play is better than at any other point in his life. And the reasons he's pointed to, it was, well, because you pay kids and you have a lot of money going into the sport, you're actually paying more than how much international leagues pay their players. So you have international players coming in, wanting to play in college basketball that's elevated the product. You have players wanting to stick around that otherwise were leaving in the one-and-done era because, well, they had no reason to stick around, and that's led to some name familiarity, too, and heightening the play. And here's the thing. The ratings back this up. This past weekend, first round of the tournament, we're waiting on the Elite Eight or the Sweet 16 numbers. The most watched first round of the NCAA tournament ever. And it's because college basketball is in a really good place. Will, did you have anything to add about 90s nostalgia?
Oh, I was just going to say, I know exactly what TikToks you're talking about, and they usually have that very soothing music or music that gets you in your feels in the background. I love those things. I do, because a lot of times it'll show you, like, the mall back in the 90s or the early 2000s, like in all the game stores and Play-Doh and all that stuff that you messed around with when you were kids. I love that. Gets me in my feels.
The mall isn't dead. Jacobs, did we talk about this? What's the name of that mall in L.A. that is still every bit alive and still thriving? Do you remember, or are you not a mall goer in any way?
Well, I go to a lot of malls. Glendale Galleria is alive and well. So is the Beverly Center, where a lot of movies were filmed. And then the Santa Anita Fashion Park next to the Santa Anita Racetrack in Arcadia is still hip and happening. But there are a lot of dead malls as well.
Also, here's the thing. Malls serve a purpose in places that have real seasons, not like where you're at in Los Angeles, but where it gets cold. A lot of people love going to malls to go for walks. So you could just take laps and go for walks in the mall when it gets cold if you don't have the gym membership. And if you hadn't thought of that, there's another pro tip. See, this is an educational program. Hey, karaoke, sing a different song every time you go, and if it's cold and you have a shopping mall, that might be a good place to go for a walk. Is Cinderella, or should Iowa be considered a Cinderella? 310-840-4910. This segment sponsored by Progressive Commercial Insurance. They protect small businesses with affordable coverage options. Get a quote today at progressivecommercial.com. I can't remember if I've already read this segment, because it's a quick turnaround from 3 a.m. last night to where we're sitting right now. Some in the chat writing on Westwood One Sports Night's YouTube feed and on X. Hey, you were just on last night. Yeah, I was. Here we are. Will Dalton, this is the part where I lean on you, because we've got NCAA tournament basketball games about to start in a half hour. We got Graham's Gambling, where we're handing out bets in just a bit. And frankly, I'm distracted. I'm tired. The Orioles just gave up a 2-run home run to Byron Buxton, and we're losing 3-1 to the Twins. So I need you to serve a very important function on this show. We have been through an hour and a half of this program. We're halfway through, and we haven't talked about the Shield, your beloved Shield, and the NFL. So I need you to help me, because you love nothing more than the Shield, even if nothing's happening in the NFL, to shoehorn NFL conversation into the program. So go right ahead.
I have a great topic for this. So I'm a Panther guy, I'm a fan. I also cover them in the state of
I'm
North
sorry.
Carolina.
I'm sorry.
Why are you sorry? They're about to win the NFC South again this year.
They haven't had a winning season in 9 years.
And they're about to get it. They're about to get it.
All right.
But you know how Washington used to always be the spot where all of the former Panthers would go? You remember that? Like
Yeah.
Ron Rivera went there, Josh Norman was like, it's a spot. Now it's the Buffalo Bills. That seems to be the spot
Well,
now.
hold 1 second. It's been that for like 10 years that Sean, and there's a reason, like Sean McDermott coached the team and he was the defensive coordinator of the Panthers. So when you look at that team, you'd see like last year, you'd see Shaq Thompson or Josh Norman from that 2015 team that went on a Super Bowl run was there. And just, yeah, you had a ton of guys, A.J. Klein and a handful of others that were Star Latulele on the defensive line that was there. But you're saying there still is a connection there, even though
it's
Sean
still
McDermott?
happening. So you got Joe Brady there, who's the new head coach, was the OC for the Panthers under Matt Rule, as we know.
he was fired in year 2. Panther fans are
Still a
claiming
Panther tie.
Joe Brady now? Okay.
Well, I don't know if they claim him, but it's a fact. DJ Moore's there, as we know. Great Panther. Shaq Thompson is there. Curtis Samuel, Sam Franklin, and now Austin Corbett the other day signed there,
I regret
as opposed to
going
coming
to.
back to Carolina. Well, it's a very interesting topic.
No, it isn't. There's nothing interesting about that at all. Not even a little bit. Even if this wasn't a national show, if this was local in North Carolina where you sit, it would be the most boring thing I've heard anyone talk about. Are you kidding me?
Do you want to talk
Panthers
Hornets
to
instead?
Bills? No, I honestly
Okay.
don't. We've
They could
gotten
get to the
enough
7th
North
seed
Carolina
tonight.
talk. You already got a coaching search going on, and we mentioned Will Wade bailing. That's enough about the state. I love the state that I'm from, but you know what? That's enough.
Yeah, you're in it.
That's enough. Usually people would want to talk about quarterbacks and shoehorn that. No, you want to talk about a center going from the Panthers
Okay.
to the Bills. No,
Do we
you've
wanna-
had your chance. You've had your chance.
Tom
It's
Brady
over.
coming back?
Stop. No, you had your chance. It's over. Get out of there. Just shoehorning awful NFL. Not even takes. There's nothing there. It's just, don't even know what that was. All right, let's try to make up for that. There are 2 Elite 8 bets that we are dying to place for this weekend's March Madness action, and we'll place those bets in Graham's Gambling next.
The NFL Draft is less than a month away, and we will take you behind the curtain, literally live from Pittsburgh for the 2026 Draft with exclusive interviews of your team's picks from your home of the NFL, Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Josh Graham.
Should Iowa be considered Cinderella? 310-840-4910. Prior to that game tipping off in the next 20 to 30 minutes, that's a question that we're asking. Tom Crean doesn't think so. Joined us earlier this hour. I do. Let's see what Andrew, not too far from where I sit, in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, happens to think on the subject. Andrew, is Iowa Cinderella?
Hey, Josh. I miss you on the weekdays, but I'm glad I could pick you up on the weekends. WD is killing it. He's taking your place really well. Iowa should not be a Cinderella because they play in the best conference in America. They play Michigan, Michigan State, Illinois, Wisconsin, Purdue, you name it. They play them every night of the week, and they should not be because they are a powerhouse like every other team in the Big Ten. That's all I got to say.
Andrew, can I push back real quick on one thing? The Big Ten does have half the field in the Elite Eight. That is true. But can we call the Big Ten the best conference in college basketball, or any conference the best conference in a given sport, if they haven't won a title in that sport in 26 years?
Well, how about they're the best conference in basketball this year? Can we say that?
Depends on how they finish. I think they're going to get two to the Final Four. You're guaranteed to get one with Iowa and Illinois. But I believe in the larger sample sizes of the season. I believe that matters more than random results in March. But if you win the title, which is what matters most, then you could call yourself that. The SEC didn't win one since 2012 until they won last year. The SEC had an amazing season a year ago. If they didn't cut down nets, then that would factor into the equation. I just have difficulty with crowning the Big Ten in that type of way. And again, it's not an anti-Big Ten sentiment because I said the same thing about football. The SEC can't stick its chest out and say it's the best when the Big Ten's won the last 3 titles. You understand? It can't be both, right?
I understand. But as a Big Ten Michigan man, I expect Michigan to win this year. So I think they're the best. Being from the Northwest, I'm still a Big Ten guy. Love the Big Ten, but I hear what you're saying.
I'm going to use that as a segue.
ACC is struggling. Okay.
Andrew, I appreciate the call. I'm going to use that as a segue. There goes Andrew in Winston-Salem because your Michigan Wolverines might just be featured right now in today's Graham's Gambling.
It's time for Graham's Gambling. Let's make some money.
Actually, Michigan can wait a second because Arizona plays tonight. Will Dalton, I think this has potential to be a really good game, but I'm still laying the 5.5 points with Arizona. Think that they win this game by close to 10, somewhere around like 7 to 10 points. So I don't think it's a rout, but I think 5.5 is too small of a number. Again, going based on the larger sample size of the season, Arizona, a lot more consistent, and on a one-day prep, I'll trust them to handle their business against Purdue in the nightcap tonight. So that's anti-Big Ten sentiment. But as promised, I like Michigan. Michigan minus 7.5 points against Tennessee. It is 3 straight years to the Elite Eight for Rick Barnes' team, but the reason that they're in this spot is because Josh Jefferson was hurt. They didn't even play great last night. I think they had 17 turnovers, and they beat the Cyclones by 14 points. I'm going to lay the 7.5 with Michigan. Think that they get to the Final Four and do so in impressive fashion. I don't love taking favorites by any means, but there are 2 right there for you. Arizona and Michigan, laying the points with both of them. Where is the upset coming from? Because I like Duke to beat UConn as well. I guess if I had to pick an upset, it's the game I have the least read on. It's Iowa and Illinois. I'll just follow suit with Iowa and say Iowa wins tonight, Michigan, Arizona, and Duke advance, and that's our Final Four in Indianapolis. What do you think?
I think I agree with that because Iowa was the only guess for me in terms of an upset, if you can call it that. So I think I'm with you on all of that.
Okay. How's your bracket look? Because for me personally, 3 of my 4 Final Four teams are out. I have Arizona still left standing, but Michigan State lost last night. Houston lost the night before. Iowa State lost last night. So I had all 4 Final Four teams heading into the Sweet 16, and that just hasn't helped much. Hasn't done much.
I've got Duke, Michigan, and Arizona still left on the board. By the way, it was 17 turnovers for Tennessee. So you had that right. I still can't get over the fact that we saw Caleb Foster for as many minutes as we did last night. Like, that was insane. Cool. Yeah. And Shire after the game was great. Yeah.
Happy for him. It's also a big part of the reason why I like Duke. Just, again, I feel the same way about UConn that I do Purdue. Like, if you follow this before March Madness, you're watching UConn, you're thinking, not them. Same thing with Purdue, and I'm going to trust that when playing teams that have been that the entire season. So maybe the team I'm having some oversight or having an oversight about is Tennessee. Maybe I should put a little bit more respect on Rick Barnes than I am, but still laying the points with them, and I'm also laying the points with Arizona as well. You can chime in on our Westwood One Sports Night YouTube chat. just like Pine Needle is saying, I believe UConn beats Duke. Tennessee will beat Michigan. There are your upsets. That would be crazy if that were to happen. I think we got 2 Big Ten teams going to the Final Four. And that's it for Graham's gambling. That does not mean we're saying that the Big Ten's the best conference in college basketball, though. Another stat. We mentioned that they haven't won the title in over a quarter century. That the last team to do it was Michigan State in 2000. Mateen Cleaves starred on that team, and he's now 48 years old. None of the players in this year's tournament was alive the last time Michigan State cut down nets or the Big Ten cut down nets. So you can't really call yourself the best conference in the sport if you never win anything, if you never win the title. So until the Big Ten does, I'll say the Big 12 is probably the best conference right now. And if they weren't dealing with injuries, Iowa State might still be playing right now. Who knows? Maybe Texas Tech would be a threat and would have advanced to face Michigan and give them problems with JT Toppin. Or maybe they would have been a number 1 seed with JT Toppin in the lineup. Or maybe BYU goes on a run if they have Richie Saunders to help A.J. Dabonsa there. They've had some injuries, and they still have Arizona, who's really darn good. So, and historically, the ACC is the best conference there is. The league, this stat's just as crazy, though, honestly, as the haven't won a championship since 2000. The league in the last 5 years has sent just one team to the Final Four. One Final Four team this decade. That is 5 tournaments. The only team to have gotten there is Zach Edey and Purdue. And that was the year after the Boilers became just the second team to lose to a 16 seed in round 1. Only having one Final Four team in the previous 5 tournaments is especially embarrassing when you consider the Big Ten and the SEC have hogged all the NCAA tournament bids. They were capitalizing on the metrics and the net and all these things to their advantage, manipulating things to have much more favorable metrics, and they get more teams in the tournament than anybody else. And the Big Ten, again, would not advance these teams far because they turned out to be frauds. So it is a funny thing that you'll hear, Will. You'll hear Big Ten fans say in one side of their mouth, hey, March Madness results aren't a great argument for deciding what the best league is, as a defense of saying, hey, we haven't won since 2000, and also we've only sent one team to the Final Four in the last 5 tournaments. But then, have you noticed that those same people are now saying, hey, we're the best conference? Why? Because we got 4 teams in the Elite 8. Well, which one is it? I
have noticed that.
Well, which one is it? Just curious. Which one is it? Because I'm the one that's been consistent here all along. Saying, hey, set it to the SEC last year. Great year. You got 14 of your 16 teams in. You know how SGA's a free throw merchant, right? The SEC and the Big Ten have been manipulating metrics. They've been NCAA tournament bid merchants. Okay, you got a lot of teams to the tournament, but do you actually win anything? And the SEC finally did last year. First title since Kentucky won in 2012. And we called them the best conference of college basketball last year because it'd be foolish to say otherwise. I don't think, even if the Big Ten gets half the teams to the Final Four, if they don't win the title, I don't think they're the best conference in college basketball. I don't think they are. Again, because these same people making the argument, remember the ACC had when they had 5 bids in 22, and they got 3 teams to the Elite 8 and 2 to the Final Four? They didn't win the title. Guess what we didn't hear? People say the ACC is the best conference. So the same logic's not true for the Big Ten either. You got to win something in order for it to qualify. Hey, real quickly, Josh, let's get to Jacobs. Let's get to Mitch in New Jersey real quickly here. Can we do that? 310-840-4910. Mitch, I got about a minute. Tell me why UConn has a chance to beat Duke tomorrow.
No problem. I'll make it quick in there. UConn, of course, they're almost a 1. they've had some good teams the last few years, and I think the backcourt's pretty good. And Duke was lucky to beat St. John's. I was hoping for St. John's because I don't like Duke. I'm a Pac-12 guy, USC guy, and I think the Big Ten getting all these Pac-12s, even the Big 12, because I think Arizona's gonna win it all this year.
Has Duke ever taken? Has Duke taken anything from you? If you like UConn, like they 99 and 2004, you took things from the Blue Devils. I get why Duke hates UConn. I don't know why UConn would hate Duke.
Well, I don't like either school, but I'm hoping I'm also hoping for Iowa to win it because I was hoping for both Iowas to be in. I know Iowa State is in the both Iowas are in the Big Ten. Now I get a little mixed up with the Mountain West, the Big 12, the Pac-12 is coming back in the Pac-8 form, a little slowly but surely. But I think it's the Big Ten in basketball and football. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, no doubt, Mitch. Enjoy the Elite Eight. Enjoy the rest of the NCAA tournament this weekend. We hope we'll hear back from you. We have Rawl writing in. Hey, Michigan's going to lose because Chris Webber's going to call a timeout at the end of the game. Man, that's an example, kind of like Sublime, of something that might be greater in the 90s, calling timeouts when you don't have them in key junctures. They were better doing that then than they are now. Up next, why one of the two greatest living American athletes needs to be protected at all costs. Keep it here on The Josh Graham Show.
This is Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Josh Graham.
We must protect Tiger Woods at all costs. And it seems we must protect him from himself, given the latest PR hit and the latest scary instance with Tiger being behind the wheel of a car. This has happened in the last decade alone. 2017, there was a DUI where he was found asleep at the wheel late at night, early morning, and there were painkillers in his system. There was some sleeping medicine, no alcohol. And then there was the serious car crash a little bit more than 5 years ago that was caused by excessive speed. This, from yesterday, seems to be a combination of both, where Tiger is charged with DUI, suspicion of DUI. He was seen to be impaired after it was a 2-lane road. He was trying to get around one of those large pressure cleaning trucks. And then when he went to get around that truck and pass, there was a car incoming in the other lane. And then he tried to swerve back. He clipped that truck, flipped his car. Everybody's okay, thank God. But reckless, perhaps under the influence as well. He was kept in jail for approximately 8 hours. In the 5 years since the car crash, which did significant damage to Tiger physically, it's become clear that he can't physically compete in major championship golf anymore or at the PGA level. And it's sad to watch it because it's so obvious he's a shell of himself and he's a reminder of the mortality that we all face. So he needs somebody in his life to tell him, you're not driving anymore. You have way too many resources to be driving. If Adam Schefter doesn't drive anymore, so his tweeting fingers can post things about the NFL on social media, there's no reason why Tiger Woods should be driving. I mean, you have those Teslas that are out there and self-driving cars, a Waymo. Get a person, a driver. Let's figure that out. And also somebody needs to tell him, hey, Tiger, your career playing golf competitively is finished. Shift your energies to supporting Charlie. And also maybe shift your energy to having another role within the sport of golf. Because let's be clear about this. While it's time for him to clearly put away the clubs, the game of golf still needs Tiger to be around it. With respect to Trevor Immelman, who replaced Nick Faldo earlier this decade at CBS, there's only one person who should be sitting next to Jim Nantz Sunday at the Masters. Because we're less than 2 weeks away from the Masters tournament. Tiger Woods should be that guy. It should be that way when we finally, after the NCAA tournament wraps up, we get to Augusta National and we are putting green jackets on. It should be, frankly, when Jim Nantz decides to hang it up 10 years from now, because, again, he says he wants to retire after calling the 100th Masters tournament, it should be Tiger Woods conducting interviews in Butler Cabin and having a role there. Because as U.S. Open champion Curtis Strange once put to me, Tiger doesn't move the needle. Tiger Woods is the needle. You know what? I want to talk about the Masters. I can't wait for the Masters. We're just a few weeks. Oh, yeah. Hello, friends. The azaleas. Can you hear them? Can you see them? They're blooming as winter turns to spring. And the players, they're out on the par 3. Pimentos and cheese. The Masters. A tradition unlike any other. Less than 2 weeks away from that. But getting back to Tiger. The same way it's good for football to have Tiger Woods as such a public ambassador for the game, as a minority stake owner and now on the call for Fox, that should be Tiger with golf. And it sure seems, whether it's the LIV debacle that he was trying to play mediator on a few years ago or other projects he's pursued, such as TGL, and it was good to see Tiger out there on the simulator last week, this would be a role it seems Tiger, he might be willing to take. And it's a real question whether or not he's going to be at Augusta less than 2 weeks from now. See, this is the part that almost gets lost at times. The reality is that Tiger's one of the two most important living American athletes we have. It's him and Michael Jordan. Regardless of their age, anything they do, anything they say, it's gigantic news because how many people care about those two athletes. And what separates those two from, let's say, Tom Brady or LeBron, the latter two, they're polarizing. You know, there are just as many people, maybe more, who hate LeBron or hate Tom Brady than like them. But everybody seems to have an opinion. With Tiger and Michael, do they have dislikable traits? Yes. Michael was a gambler. Michael might not have been the kindest teammate. Tiger's had his off-course issues, how his marriage fell apart, and the things that we're describing here. But if Tiger Woods is in contention, if Tiger Woods is in the mix on a Sunday, I'm there, you're there, we're all there. And with respect to Indiana football in January, the Masters win that Tiger had in 2019, it still remains the greatest sports moment of this century because of how improbable it was. It's so dramatic and how emotional with him and Charlie and how everybody was together in wanting to see that happen. And it was, we haven't really had, certainly in how splintered entertainment has become in the social media age and the entertainment age, the digital age, having something as communal as that was really, really special. Over the last 100 years, Tiger, he cracks the list of the American athlete Mount Rushmore. If you're doing a list of American athlete Mount Rushmore, the greatest athletes of all time, Americans, these are the names, and you only need to say one name in order to know who we're talking about. Michael, Ali, Babe, and yes, Tiger. He's on that list. But if I'm wrong, correct me. 310-840-4910. Where does Tiger fall in the pantheon of American athletes, especially after yet another PR hit with what we've seen this week? Thank goodness no one being hurt. 310-840-4910 if you want in. You can also watch the show in addition to listening to it on our YouTube channel. You can find us, Westwood One Sports Night, as that continues to grow in popularity. We are thankful, but a lot of other cool things that we have coming up. We have some of our crew that's in D.C. for UConn and Duke tomorrow, and we're at the games last night in D.C. You can find exclusive coverage of that, exclusive content, we should say, Westwood One Sports Night YouTube channel. Liddell Willingham was there, and he was on the air this morning. Tomorrow will be, or next week, we should say, I'll be doing shows from Indianapolis at the Final Four. Can't wait for that. Also on the YouTube channel, await a chance for you to chime in on any of the comments or any of the topics that we have here on the show. Pine Needle. Josh, I'm the needle. Pine Needle. Keenan. Josh, what do azaleas sound like to you? I don't think I can answer that question, but you'll know it when you hear it. You'll know it if you'll hear it or when you hear it. 310-840-4910. This segment sponsored by Progressive Commercial Insurance. They protect small businesses with affordable coverage options. Get a quote today at progressivecommercial.com. Iowa, Illinois, about the tip-off and the all Big Ten Elite Eight game. Westwood One Sports, the home of the NCAA tournament, but that's not the game that's the main show tonight. The game that we're going to see tonight in San Jose is even bigger than UConn Duke. UConn Duke will get the most ratings, but the biggest game on the slate, the most significant from a basketball perspective, the main event's Purdue, Arizona. That's the one. Goodness, can't wait. Because it's the best team in college basketball this year, Arizona, facing the preseason number 1 team in the AP poll, that's Purdue. Entering the year, what made Purdue so intriguing is that they had so many homegrown seniors on their team. Not guys who had transferred at any point. These are players that arrived in West Lafayette, been there for 4 years, been through a lot, by the way, including 3 straight years of having advanced to the second weekend of the tournament. 2 years ago to the Final Four. They're led by Braden Smith, who's one of the greatest college point guards of all time on paper. One of the most decorated. He broke Bobby Hurley's career assist record in the last month. But don't forget that Arizona has advanced to the second weekend as well 3 straight years. So Tommy Lloyd, Jaden Bradley, these are guys who have been around too. They're familiar to this stage as well. While the Wildcats have been a constant all year long, it was Purdue that caught fire in the Big Ten tournament by beating a Michigan team that at that point had only had 2 losses the entire year. And given how half the Elite Eight is coming from that one conference, that should make you think about what the Boilers did and maybe be more impressed by it. All the pressure, another consideration, all the pressure is on Arizona to win this game. Nobody's really giving Purdue a shot. Arizona's the team that all the pressure's on them. The Wildcats, they've been a juggernaut all year, but they haven't been to the Final Four in 25 years. When they went to the Final Four in 2001, they had Richard Jefferson and Gilbert Arenas on the team. So anything short of getting to Indy, that's a failure. And all that pressure falls on the shoulders of Tommy Lloyd. And to add another wrinkle to this, if he loses, he might be North Carolina's coach within the next week. So if you're Arizona, there's some more pressure in that regard. If you're a North Carolina fan and you want Tommy Lloyd, you should be a huge Purdue basketball fan. You should be banging that big-ass drum and saying, "Boiler up!" Arizona has to be the pick, though. Has to be the pick to advance because it would be foolish to predict anything else. This is a team that really doesn't have any holes. Are they great when it comes to grabbing defensive boards, that might be the one area you can critique, that they allow too many offensive rebounds. But you got an amazing coach that's won more games than any coach has in his first 5 seasons as a D1 coach, and Tommy Lloyd. You have a senior point guard. We hear how guards win in March. You have a senior point guard that was the Big 12 Player of the Year. You have not one but 2 star freshmen in Koa Pete and Braden Burries. You got international players that are on this team too that otherwise would be playing overseas in European ball, but college pays more now, so you added them and you took advantage of that. It's a deep team. Their resume is nearly perfect. They opened the season by beating the reigning champs, who turned out to be pretty good in their own right. They won against Alabama in Birmingham. They won at UConn. There really is nothing to critique about this team. So we're going to take the larger sample size of what this team's been all year versus Purdue's gotten hot of late. Purdue, after all, lost 3 out of 4 to close the regular season and 4 out of 6. The larger sample matters. Arizona wins the game. 7 to 10 points, we'll call it. Covering. Hey, we're taking that. Arizona's our pick to win tonight's main events in the Elite Eights. Coming up, why the Hoop State has really lived up to the name this week. It's next on the Josh Graham Show.
March Madness continues with Elite 8 matchups today and tomorrow. Listen to the Westwood One app to hear who moves on to the Final Four in Indianapolis from your home of the NCAA tournament. Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will be in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Josh Graham.
Got too many screens on right now. It's a mistake. Trying to keep an eye on Iowa, Illinois. It's a 10-point lead already for Iowa. The underdog up 12-2 on Illinois. The Baltimore Orioles had the best player on their team with the bases loaded and 2 outs, down by 2 runs against the Twins. So, of course, Gunnar Henderson flew out in that spot. Not great. We're not super pumped about it. The vibes, they are not great. Even though, Will Dalton, we happen to be located in the epicenter of basketball. Not talking about Indianapolis or Indiana as being the hoop state. We are learning this week, yet again, why they call the state of North Carolina the hashtag hoop state. Duke has advanced to the Elite Eight. Not just the men, but Kara Lawson's team, too, beating LSU and Kim Mulkey at the buzzer. That was one of those shots that looked like it was going to lip out about twice, but found its way through in Sacramento, Duke advancing. NC State's involved in the news when Will Wade bailed on them for LSU. That's been an interesting one. He posted, see, for those watching on YouTube and on X, if you can find the graphic that LSU put up today, because they're calling Will Wade the general. That's what they're calling him, the general at LSU. The general who retreated from Raleigh to now go to Baton Rouge. It was an awful look for him because he's a snake. But the Wolfpack, maybe if you're doing business with a snake such as him, maybe don't have the buyout be just $5 million, soon to be $3 million on April 1st after just 1 year. His buyout should be higher than, say, I don't know, the general manager of North Carolina basketball. Oh, here we go. Will Dalton.
It's unbelievable.
Why is it being formatted that way? Because I want to be able to see this thing as it's meant to be seen here. I can't read any of the text. I don't care to. It's going to be like the meme that you see on the internet where the guy posts, I'm not going to read all that. I'm either really happy for you or sorry that happened. That's where I'm at on the Will Wade, the general statement that he put out. Hashtag
have you seen this
boot
shirt?
Up. I want you to boot up. That's what the shirt says. Boot up.
Ridiculous.
which has led NC State fans to post pictures of his physique, shall we say, and say boob up. Because the best comment I heard is from an angry NC State fan that called a local podcast, shout out to Ovius and Giglio out that way, and said, quote, "This ice cream cone shape mother bleeper." Just like that expression. Someone else said he was a pear-shaped mother bleeper. A lot of cursing. A lot of cursing.
Somebody said he
from
was
NC
shaped
State
like
fans.
the state of Louisiana, so it makes sense.
So NC State has focused its coaching search on two names. Josh Schertz at St. Louis, which it's going to take a lot to get him out of St. Louis, considering he just signed a 6-year extension. And then the guy they should be hiring is Tennessee associate head coach Justin Gainey. In fact, you've got Rick Barnes at his availability today saying, I would love for them to hire him because nobody loves NC State more than that guy. After somebody leaves you at the altar the way that Will Wade did, I think love for your university and understanding of your fan base and your place, I think that's part of the job criteria. I think that should be factored in. Kind of like if someone gets fired because they're late all the time, don't be surprised if the replacement that's brought in is a former military type that's quite punctual with their schedule. Like, you usually are the inverse of what your predecessor was. And Justin Gainey, being from NC State and also being the associate head coach for a team that's been to 3 straight Elite Eights, that might be something you should hire when he spent time at your school and understands the dynamics at play. Just on a general matter, that makes sense. But then from a basketball matter, too, he's been at the highest level at not just Tennessee, but at Arizona, too, with Sean Miller. He's had some big-time recruiting wins. So Justin Gainey is the coach they should be hiring at NC State more than Josh Schertz. And you're going to hear people say, Will, can he coach? I mean, look what just happened to Hubert Davis. I don't know. Would you have signed up for being a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament at NC State and going to 3 straight tournaments and going to a Final Four in a national championship game? I'd probably sign up for that. It's not like it's terrible. Yeah. It never works just bringing an alumni back. It's not working at Duke. I'd say that's working pretty well. You just don't know how good he is. He doesn't have any head coaching experience. If John Shire didn't win Coach of the Year in the ACC, it probably would have been Jay Lucas. A guy who didn't have any head coaching experience. It turns out to be pretty damn good. Florida State, who almost beat Duke in the ACC tournament? Luke Laux' team wasn't playing on Tuesday in year 1. He turned out to be a pretty good coach, too. That guy didn't have any head coaching experience, was an NBA assistant. So, again, I just don't like any of the arguments against it. Justin Gainey would be a great hire for them. And then you have North Carolina. So we've talked about Duke, talked about NC State. Now there's North Carolina. These are ACC schools that are all within an hour of each other and what they call the Research Triangle in North Carolina. And they learned Caleb Wilson is declared for the draft after the program fired Hubert Davis this week. So let's get to the latest on that search. Some breaking news out of Nashville. Mark Byington has signed to a long-term extension with Vandy basketball. In 2 years with the Commodores, made the tournament twice. Really good year this year. Tyler Tanner has some eligibility. You hope, is coming back to play for the Doors. And Vanderbilt's just getting ahead of the game, saying, hey, let's extend him now because he's done enough. And also try to prevent him from going back to the state where he played his college basketball. He played at UNC Wilmington. Tommy Lloyd is the one hire that would be universally approved of in Chapel Hill. And that's the focus for North Carolina. It seems that's the focus, and that's where it should be. A big part of this job, understanding the behind-the-scenes inner workings, is getting the Carolina family that's been a bit splintered of late on board with a hire. Roy Williams and the Carolina family, former players, former coaches. And this is the first time that North Carolina is not going to have Dean Smith or some coach that has worked or played for Dean Smith leading the program since the 50s. So it is important to keep that large contingent of people happy. That's why you're not going to see a guy like Nate Oates considered for this job. One, it's a massive buyout. Two, the Charles Bediako thing rubbed people the wrong way when it comes to basketball. And then off the court, you have the Aiden Holloway and Brandon Miller situations. He's just not going to be a consideration. Todd Golden, the Title IX case, also a big buyout. It doesn't look like he's going to be a strong candidate either. When Roy Williams retired, he made it known to decision makers he wanted Hubert Davis to be his successor. And North Carolina ended up giving Roy what he wanted. But he did reportedly say that if Carolina did go outside the family, there would be one hire he's okay with, that he would support. And that would be the hiring of Gonzaga coach Mark Few. Roy and Few, very close. Tommy Lloyd at Arizona was Few's right-hand man for 20 years in Spokane. And when Roy retired, Lloyd hired Roy's top assistant, Steve Robinson, to help him get the program off the ground at Arizona. Don't forget, Caleb Love transferred away from UNC to Michigan, but that blew up for academic purposes late in the process when most teams have already had their rosters figured out. And it was Tommy Lloyd in Arizona that took Caleb in with open arms and even made him a more efficient player. The final Pac-12 player of the year before the Pac-12 ceased to exist as we know it was Caleb Love. So that's obviously a lot of connection there that Carolina family folks would give two thumbs up about. But then you look at what is appealing from the basketball perspective of what you're trying to do at Carolina. Well, you need to know what exactly the criteria is before you start talking about who the top candidates are. Steve Newmark is the incoming AD at North Carolina, and this is a very 2026 thing, what I'm about to say. He went on North Carolina Athletics in-house podcast to outline what exactly they're looking for in the next coach, and here's what he said.
For us to do right by the Carolina family, we have to make sure we get the best candidate possible, the one who can lead us for years to come and have us competing for national championships on an annual basis. We want to make sure that we have a leader who understands that part of the job is trying to manage the financial component of running a basketball program, and somebody who is, able and engaged and energizes our fan base. And so I think we're confident that there's a lot of qualified folks out there. We just need to make sure we find the one that is the right for Carolina.
Seems like some shots at Hubert Davis there. Oh, we need to find someone who understands what the current layout and the current framework is and energizes our fan base. Well, Tommy Lloyd would do that because whether or not Carolina fans would be honest about this or not, it is true that Carolina stacks itself up against Duke. They're always going to compare themselves with Duke. A big part of Duke's it's kind of like, do you mind if I get really nerdy for a second, Will? I have these big old frame glasses, and somewhere on one of these shelves that I have, for those watching on YouTube and on X, I have all the Harry Potter books. Can you read one page of the Harry Potter book? Floyd Mayweather? Those who know, know. If that reaches one person, I'll appreciate it. If one person understood that reference, shout out to you. One page. It could be Cat in the Hat. Were you a Harry Potter fan at all?
No, Star Wars was always my jam.
Yeah. Well, see, Harry Potter and Voldemort were always linked with each other, even though they were like diametric rivals, and there was this connection between their wands and things of that nature. I don't want to get too nerdy about it, but that's how Duke and North Carolina are. A big part of Duke and North Carolina's identities is the rivalry that connects them together. And a big part of the appeal of Tommy Lloyd at North Carolina would be he's a perfect foil to John Shire at Duke. See, John Shire has the record for the most wins in his first 4 years as a D1 coach. Tommy Lloyd has the same record, but for the first 5 years as a D1 coach. Jon Scheyer has lost exactly 3 home games at Cameron Indoor Stadium in his first 4 years as Duke's coach. One of them, you guessed it, was the Tommy Lloyd at Arizona. The only team you could argue that's better than Duke this year, that's had a better year than Duke, the Arizona Wildcats. Both those teams have had just 2 losses, and Arizona's done it in the superior Big 12 conference this year and also scheduled a rigorous non-conference schedule. Is it going to be easy to pry him away from Arizona?
Yeah,
no.
you got me.
But is it impossible to do so? No, it is not. See, this is a coach, Tommy Lloyd, who's been working for an AD that did not hire him, and a university president that didn't hire him either. And reportedly, he's had some issues behind the scenes with that administration. So while there are some challenges with the sizable buyout and that he's been a West Coast guy his entire career, Carolina has the capability. Carolina has the resources to blow him out of the water and bring him in. If they can bring in Bill Belichick at $10 million a year, they can figure out a way to land Tommy Lloyd and land that big fish as well. But it does seem like, if we're just reading the tea leaves here, Will, it does seem like it's Tommy Lloyd or Billy Donovan that's going to get this job. If you are to believe Jeff Goodman's reporting that TJ Otzelberger's out of it, and now Mark Byington is with this news here, I know there have been reports about Dusty May being a candidate. I just don't see that happening. I don't. It doesn't make sense. He turned down his alma mater at Indiana. It seems like to me that Carolina's not in a rush because the Chicago Bulls season doesn't end until, what, April 12th, April 15th?
Something like that. Well, it's pretty soon. It won't be long.
So they'll have to hire him before the portal opens up, and he'd have to do 2 jobs at once for a week. The Bulls are fine with that. They're trying to tank anyway. They're trying to purposely lose basketball games. So maybe he even just resigns from the position and takes hold the final 2 weeks at North Carolina. That's what it seems like to me. They're going to wait until Arizona loses, because if they win a national championship, they're probably not going to get him anyway. And if they don't get Tommy Lloyd, it's going to be Billy Donovan. That's probably where this is going to end up. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, I prefer Tommy Lloyd for all of the reasons you laid out. At the start of the week, you know, when I was still getting intel on this, like my list was Billy Donovan, Tommy Lloyd, Dusty May. But thinking about all the Carolina ties, the Mark Few, Roy Williams discussion, it kind of turned me on to the idea of Tommy Lloyd even more. Plus, as we've noted, he did make Caleb Love an efficient basketball player, or at least a more efficient basketball player, a Pac-12 Player of the Year.
They're the best. They're the best team in the country right now.
If you hire, say about that.
If you hire, it's either them or Duke. So if you can't hire Jon Scheyer, who's better to hire than Tommy Lloyd?
I agree.
Like, let's just think about how stupid the notion is. Can you imagine a Tar Heel fan being upset about Tommy Lloyd being the hire? Oh, my God. We just hired the guy who has the best team in the country, not named Duke, or maybe even better than Duke. What are we doing?
I would love to hear the reasoning for why a Carolina fan would be upset. Like, why do you want Billy Donovan that much more, or Dusty May that much more than Tommy Lloyd? I'd like to hear it.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think they're going to get shot down, or I don't think they're going to hire Billy Donovan until they get an answer from Tommy Lloyd. That's where I think this is at. And then they deviate to that. Truthfully. I'm starting to get upset with my Oriole Birds because they just gave up another run and they trail 4-1. Oh, my gosh.
I just hate that for you. I really do.
It's very, very annoying and obnoxious. I just expect great things. Similar to North Carolina fans. I just expect them to win everything all the time, 4-1, the Minnesota Twins on top of my Orioles. Iowa, Illinois, meanwhile. So Iowa jumped out to a 12-2 lead. Now that lead's down to 2 at 22-20 at the under 8 media. 7:43 to go in the first half. An all Big Ten matchup. Will Dalton, remind the people what Scott Van Pelt told us watching Big Ten basketball's like.
It's like watching fat people have sex.
So that's what we're getting in the Elite Eight, everybody. When you're
That's
watching
it.
this Elite Eight basketball game, that's what we want you to think of. We need to close things out by putting this show to bed. Will Dalton, what do we got in Put It to Bed?
It's not your typical scene at Chick-fil-A.
That's next on the Josh Graham Show.
Where spring blooms, legends rise, and golf's most sacred traditions come alive. Every Masters moment on the Westwood One Sports app. We're live from Augusta starting April 9th. Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Westwood One Sports presents Josh Graham.
Will Dalton, gonna need you to fill me in on what's happening with Iowa and Illinois, because I don't have a good answer. I just see guys warming up and getting shots up right now at the under 8 timeout right now. And what I'm reading, I don't know if you have the audio up, is that they can't get the horn to stop buzzing. The horn is going, and it isn't stopping on the broadcast. And apparently Kevin Harlan is on the call, who's also a Westwood One teammate of ours, and trying to bring that to the audience. So gonna lean on you for that. It's a buzzer delay in Houston. I would say it's a horn delay. Some might say that it's a horny start to the Elite Eight. Some might say that.
Oh, my God.
Some might say that. And it quite is. Quite literally, it is. We got Pete Souza, who's going to take you from 7 p.m. Eastern to 11 p.m. tonight, breaking down these games as it happens. I'm just frustrated. I'm about as frustrated as the players are, having to listen to this incessant buzzing because my Baltimore Orioles, who led 1-0 against the Twins, suddenly can't score any runs at all. Haven't homered yet this year in 2 games, and they're 3 outs, 4 outs away from getting put out at home in Game 2 of the season. Baseball sads are really, they're back. The baseball sads, Will, for your team. And this is the part. People ask, why do you like the 162-game schedule? Why is that an appeal? Because when you lose games that make you want to punch a wall, what drives you from not punching said wall is the fact that they play tomorrow. You know what? Not going to dwell on this too much because they'll be back in action tomorrow and they'll be able to figure some things out. As for the horn delay, it doesn't seem that they've quite mastered that code yet. But have you turned on the broadcast and been able to hear the horn yet? Can you confirm these reports?
So here's what I've got. It's not, the horn's not going now, and it looks like now they're like running sprints on the court. The Jumbotron is completely black. Like it's out.
They're resetting the whole system.
Yeah. So the horn's off now. It's not going anymore. But they're still trying to figure this thing out.
Wow. The Elite Eight, everyone. There it is.
Big Ten, baby.
No, there have been stories like this in the regular season in college basketball. There are 2 that stand out. There was a massive horn delay. No, wait, that was an NBA game. This is something that seems to happen in NBA venues where they couldn't get the horn to stop for a little bit. In college, they couldn't get the shot clock to work in Athens, Georgia. Do you remember this? So I think it was Ole Miss playing Georgia, and they had the PA announcer say on the microphone when there were 10 seconds left and 5, he would count down. He would go 10, 5 on the shot clock. So if you're a fan of an SEC in an SEC fan base, what would you do naturally if you were the opposing team? You would make as much noise as possible so that the players wouldn't be able to hear the PA announcer when there were 10 or 5 seconds on the clock. So it's not quite as maddening as that, but still it's quite bizarre nonetheless. Let's close out today's program the way that we close out every show, and it's with Will Dalton taking or putting this show to bed.
So you might say this is a case of horsing around. So this Chick-fil-A in Florida, they got an interesting sight in their drive-thru when it wasn't a car that pulled up. It was actually somebody that rolled up in a horse in the drive-thru. This happened. So
horse.
The rider, a horse. Little horsing around. Are there rules
against this?
I don't know. I don't think so. So the rider's name was Philippe, and he actually recorded this interaction with some of those glasses.
Oh my God, they're playing again without the screens and such working, and they just handed to the official scorer and the referees at the scorers table actual air horns, like the ones you would have in your hands. They've just brought 3 or 4 to the scorers table, so that way they can sound the air horn manually with their fingers, like the handheld air horns. Magical. March.
The delay was 11 minutes.
Goodness. Does that mean the tip-off of the nightcap tonight's going to get pushed back a little?
Probably so, I would think.
Got it. All right, so what ended up happening here?
Well, so the rider's name was Philippe, and he recorded this with some of those glasses that have the cameras in them. We've seen those. And in this video, a worker named Mike greets the guy on his horse. Apparently, the horse's name was Gitano, and they trot in. Yeah, they trot into the drive-thru. The Chick-fil-A worker is like, "Hey, can I get your order?" and all that. Apparently, the guy on the horse just wanted a drink. He didn't even want food. That's it.
What did the horse want?
They don't say. I don't think the horse wanted anything. My guy just rolled up to a Chick-fil-A in a horse and got lemonade. Not even a chicken sandwich or anything. It's a little disappointing.
I'm more interested in what's happening here with Iowa, Illinois now. I have so many questions in regards to the air horn situation. Where did this concept of having the loud horn at the scorer's table start in basketball? Like, where did this come from? Like, did Dr. James Naismith have, like, an air horn that he used? When were air horns even created? These are the questions that I would like answered. I don't know if these AI services can help us out quick enough to tell me when we started using air or the horns at basketball venues, and if air horns are old enough that Dr. James Naismith could use it in order to make substitutions or whatever back in the day when they were using peach baskets. Anything
I'm trying to
add
Google
this,
this.
Will? Or are you trying to, like, are those M&Ms
I'm trying to look it
on
up.
your table? Or what did I just
No,
hear
it's my. I've got a bracelet on, and it's got like a little dangly thing, so it keeps hitting the
Very
table
obnoxious.
here.
Makes a lot of
Would you
noise.
expect anything less from me, though?
No, I wouldn't. Not at all. I do enjoy Will Forte. I don't know why. I probably shouldn't, how corny they are and how corporate it is. How many of those, what is it, Capital One commercials with Samuel L. Jackson, Jennifer Garner, and Charles Barkley. I probably shouldn't enjoy those commercials as much as I do, but I still do. Will Forte playing Dr. James Naismith using the T-shirt cannon makes me laugh every time. Speaking of Dr. James Naismith.
The buzzer was first originated in the 1950s. That's when this started. So we know that.
Air horns? When were air horns created? See, this is the part where you take forever to Google. You can be replaced by
air
AI.
horns
Early 1910s
came out in the
answer.
1860s.
I got 1910s right here. So, Dr. James Naismith might have had air horns at the time, is what I'm saying.
Probably did.
We learned something in this segment. I hope you did. Pete Souza, top that! What a show. Enjoy the basketball. And we'll talk to you, I will, tomorrow at this time. It's been the Josh Graham Show.
This is Westwood One Sports.